A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are again here on our Facebook live page and YouTube live page to have another very interesting live talk with Miss Pranjal Bhatt. She is a super person. She is having her interest in the field of English literature, and she has done her masters from uh, from St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad, in English literature. She has her research interest in Indian partition literature, gender studies, comparative and feminist literature, cultural studies, linguistic, and digital humanities. She is a PhD student as well as like she is teaching the undergraduate and postgraduate student at Indus University. Alongside, she is also pursuing her PhD in the field of this English literature only, and she is studying graphic representation of Indian identity. To talk about her achievements, there's a numerous list, and I'll speak about a few. She is an active member of English Language Teachers Association of India since last 3 years. She has conducted two PG workshops on life and employability skills at Indus University. She has participated in more than 15 seminars and webinars. She has participated in an online 1 month workshop on academic writing and research methodology in English conducted by All India IFESET in collaboration with NTA NET English Broadcast in May 2020. She has participated in online FDP training on model learning management system offered by Spoken Tutorial Project IIT Bombay. She has participated in AR Sen National Seminar 2019 held at St. Xavier's, Ahmedabad. And she had participated in panel discussions on blended learning for educational enrichment in 2018. So I warmly welcome you, Pranjal ma'am. So stage is all yours. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your warm greetings and such an elaborate introduction of me. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My today's topic, as it is already shared, is technical and vocational education epoch. Okay, why technical and vocational education? When being a part of an education field and being a member of this institution, I feel highly obliged to bring out certain aspects of our life, of the education system, that is required for all of us to pay attention, right? And it is necessary. This is the high time. If we do not recognize certain topics right now, I don't think that there will be another chance given to our youthful country to rise from above of where we are recently. So yes, technical and vocational education epoch. The lecture is on why there is a need of change to bring this technical and vocational education rather than the ancient tradition of education that we are following from such a long time. Right? Ma'am, can you please change the screen? I hope the PPT is visible, and the next screen has a huge number. The number is such a big that if I would have asked you people to guess about it, ma'am, am I audible? I want you to change the screen, please. Yes. So the number that is there over here is such a huge number, right? The number is of the total strength of population that India carries. Now, in this total huge strength of India, how many of us do we think are literate? What could do? What is the literacy ratio of India? The next page or the next PPT highlights. Ma'am, please turn the slide. The next slide highlights different states of where in India and how much part of India is highly literate. Then there is moderately literate states in India and differently starting from less than 70 to highest the 90%, right? We are removing the 10% into the minorities. That also of this huge number, 136, right? Crore. If we are talking about, it's a huge number. Leaving out 1% is also a huge number. And over here, we are talking about if we calculate the literacy rate of India in total, right? It is currently 77%. Why such a less number of literacy rate? And if this is the literacy rate, what do you think are the repercussions? Ma'am, please turn on to the next slide. The next slides talk about how is the employment ratio. We all know the objectives of education, right? So the next slides talk about the employment ratio, wherein it is said that the current in 2000 and 2020, if the current latest ratio, if we see, right, and that is after having the effect of this pandemic, the global pandemic, the unemployment ratio has risen about, moved up to the 24, and then it has fallen back to the 8% again. So this level of unemployment, and this is just the ratio of unemployment. We are not talking about the other aspects of employment, such as underemployment, such as disguised employment, right? So this is the effect. This is what our India is currently right now. And we know if we are talking about being a part of a country, right, our major role being a part of a country and as an individual to ourselves as well is to grow, rise, not just economically, based on our knowledge as well, right? So, ma'am, please turn on the next slide. Yes, this is the ratio that I was talking about. Ratio starting from 2015-16 to 2020-20, which where the unemployment ratio has constantly been fluctuating from around 20% to 10% to again 8% to 7%. Then because of the pandemic, it has risen about to the 24%, fallen back down. Yes, that is a huge recovery, but recovery based on what? Do you think it's just the role of the education that it is playing? What is the role of education? If this is the level of unemployment, right? If this is the number of unemployment, what do we expect our education to give us? Why do we invest so much with the number of rising private institution for the whole education system, right? We do recognize that there is the huge amount of investment that we are putting in our education, and what is the return is the liability. Person who is getting education, is the liability turning into an asset in future? There is no assurity. Do we have any assurity? No, right? Why not? Because we can see the number of unemployment, right? Percent of unemployment ratio. We can see the percent of disguised unemployment. We can see the percent of underemployment, right? And therefore, there needs to be a disruptive pattern. There requires to be a disruptive pattern that brings change in this education system. So, ma'am, can you please turn on the next slide? The basic aim and objective of education is to bring social difference, right? Since the time of partition, where we were, left alone, begging for the richest country has grown and has put down to the level where we were begging, we were into poverty, we were, most of the Indian population was under the line of poverty. Yes, we have risen above that, but the point is this education system is not taking us any further. Now the major aim of education is needs to be analyzed again, which is to bring a social difference, which is to bring rise towards the betterment of growth and again the progress, right? It is to gain more knowledge and acquire professional skills. How many of us are employed, and yet there is a saying in Hindi, right? मुंह खोलते ही पैसे गिर गए. So are we that professionally trained? Are we having that knowledge? Are we having, if we are employed, are we capable, or are we sitting as an underemployed person? Are we sitting into a disguised employment form, right? So yes, to get employment which is justifiable with a degree. Nowadays we have the degree in our hand, right? But are we making use of the degree in an appropriate form, right? This unemployment, it is stated, right, in a talk of Shashi Tharoor of a well-informed mind versus well-educated mind. He has stated this fact very clearly, where he states that the ratio of unemployment, if we see, there are people who are highly qualified for a particular position, and yet they would want to apply for that place because there is no particular position or a designation that is equivalent to the degree. So highly qualified, or then there is the underqualified person, right, who is not qualified, but yet because there is nobody who is qualified for that particular position, this person who is having the lower degree, who is having the lower qualification, is given a chance to perform at that particular place. So this objectives of education, if we confirm, right, we need to understand that the current education system is not fulfilling this all these objectives that are there in current. Okay, ma'am, can you please change the slide? Current education system, if we are talking about, right, there is a high need of change that is required. And with this pandemic, yes, we have seen that starting from an eldest group of any professional or corporate system is changing, is trying to adapt him or herself with the new technologies, because it was required to sustain their own position, to secure their own place in their employment sector. And from the oldest to the youngest, right, such as children, small children, we have seen them, they are also changing, they are also getting involved into this particular um, change. They are getting involved in learning these technicalities, they are getting involved learning more skills. And please, ma'am, can you change the slide? I would want to highlight this pattern of education that was going so far, that is now in flux because of this pandemic, and the pattern is now changed, going whole seesaw, right? Just because of this pandemic. And yes, before the pandemic also, we had this insight of bringing this change. But how was it implemented? With what speed was it implemented? It was very slow, right? So, ma'am, please turn on the slide. Can you change the slide? Yes, thank you. So over here, there I have managed to draw different patterns, right? Road to education. If we analyze road to education, initially, the ancient tradition of education, it used to be a simple static line, right? It was a simple line without any frequency, a single road where you enroll yourself, where you learn, where you sit, you study all the theories, and then after you move out of the education system, there is the time where you have to perform everything on the go. Suddenly all the theories that you have learned, you need to perform them. But in current education system, and thankfully to NEP 2020, right, this disruption is going to happen very soon. This pattern is now changed and put into a seesaw form, right? It's put into different curves where each end will have different skills. Each end we can find wherever the dropout ratio has been very huge initially, right? Now, no matter from where do you drop out, you have listed out, you have learned certain skills, you have learned certain trainings, you have done certain trainings which are applicable for the different kinds of employment. So now the certified courses have been given into this new education policy 2020. This disruption of education system needed to happen before this decade or a decade ago than that, right? But now that we have this, there is a time to open our eyes and to acknowledge that there are fields different than the IIMs, then the IITs, then the, AIMS, the doctorals, right? So, yes, again, ma'am, can you please change the slide? If we understand this, we understand that if we marry the technical educational field, right, with quality and enriching content being blended with this theoretical knowledge, right, and the implementation of technical fields, there is a circle of win. There is the ring or circle where we win the situation of this unemployment, of this disguised unemployment, right? We win the situation wherein the huge number, the first slide, remember I said 136 crore of people. This is a human resource. We need to understand and analyze this human resource, rather than we need to stop looking this human resource as a human capital. We Indians have been put into the patterns looking everything under the monetarily advancement, right? The economical advancement. Apart from that, yes, that is eventually going to come. But first, we need to analyze this, that there needs to be a transformation in this education system where we need to bring in the technical and the vocational education system, which will transform our ancient method of teaching into different ways where we will implement certain ideas, right? Now, therefore, there is the high need. Ma'am, can you please change the slide? There is the high need of implementing vocational education. When we state vocational education, what do we mean by vocational education? Please, can you turn on the slide? Vocational education is something that is more based on the opportunities of employment, right? Education that is based on the opportunities of employment, rather than taking all the theories, right? With understanding all the theorems that we have learned and implementing all the, logical formulas from one to the other place. There is a need to implement this technical field, right? We do have different technical fields, but the point is, are they focused, are they emphasized, are they turned towards the employment field? There is a huge gap between this, right? So vocational education binds this gap. It becomes a bridge that will help this theoretical knowledge to bind with the practicals and then implement it towards and getting a qualification which is better for our own employment, right? So this is required. Vocational training, vocational education is also known as career or technical education. It is also known as technical and vocational education system. So CTE or TVET, that is T, technical vocational educational system, right? Over here in this vocational education system, an individual is trained with an expertise where he gains this expertise in a particular group of techniques that are required for a particular employment. Ma'am, please change the slide. So why is this required? We have understood, right? Understanding, analyzing all the previous numbers, analyzing all the previous graphs, we have understood that there is a need to implement this technical vocational education. And where are do we have this technical vocational educations being imparted in our Indian country and into certain institutions? Yes, we do have. There is a National Council and Vocational Training Center that was established back in 1952, right? In 1952, it was established and it has worked, bringing out certain new fields and new technical, community colleges and new diploma certified courses that are available in different colleges, right? There are certain vocational agencies that are running across the country who provide such technical and vocational education trainings. But the point is that yet till now they were working in a very less efficient manner, right? Those were the teens, those were the certain sections that were looked down upon. Why? Because they do not give you the actual undergraduate or postgraduate degree. They were certified courses, right? And therefore they were looked down upon. But if we remove this shade, if we remove this curtain from our sight, right, we will get to know and we will get to understand that this is just a myth. We need to debunk this myth that there is just this IITs and there are just this doctorates and there are just this engineers who are required to be getting out and who are earning and who are getting employed, right? The highest number, if we look right down, right, we would find that there are highest number of MBAs. There are tons of MBAs that are found right now. There are lakhs of engineers that are found right now who are unemployed, who are disguisedly employed, who are underemployed. And the reason behind it is this, that the training is lacking, right? So yes, ma'am, can you please turn on this slide? We need to understand this. There is the high demand of putting the supply. If we say that there is an unemployment, no, there is not an unemployment. There are lakhs of opportunities, right? But as we discussed earlier, that there is a need to analyze that there are certain people who are highly qualified for that job or that employment, and there are certain people who are lowerly qualified. So therefore there are 90% of jobs in India. The studies says this, that 90% of job in India are skill based, and out of which, if we analyze the population, if we analyze the youth, only 5% of youth is having that particular skills required for the particular employment. Why is that so? Right? So then we are bound to face this. In 2020, if we consider the average age of India, this is the most youthful country right now, right? The average age of India is considered to be, in 2020 or 2021, we are around 28 to 30. The average age is between 28 to 30. And with this average age, if we consider human resource, we can be one of the highest resource that could bring out the exact economy required for the growth and development of our country. But where are we right now? The need is here. Need of technical and vocational education is required here. Right, ma'am, can you please change the slide? The need of technical and vocational education is required to bring the higher in influx, right, to bring the major change. It is required to bring different forms of education, and therefore getting training, right, training regarding the employment section. Now how, being a part of an institution today, I can say that, and also being a member who teaches into the technical fields such as BTech, right, into various sections of, starting from IT department section to the mechanical, automobile, civil, right? These are all the technical branches. These are all the technical fields. So the point is, now we do train them, right? We try and implement the theoretical knowledge into the practice. But where is this practice going to help them in the employment section? The gap is huge again, because they are meeting with the practice, but the practice requires involvement of the externals, the private industries, the government industries, to initiate, to give them certain chances, to give them actual work to perform, right? Until and unless they do not have that idea, the accuracy would not come directly when they are employed. So yes, we all need a salary that starts from more than 7 lakhs of an annual income. But we understand that we do not have that knowledge to ask that amount. Why? Because so far we have implemented the theories into basics that are very menial in the actual field of employment, right? When you go and perform, there are huge tasks, there are always, and then there you are either, the person, the employee will feel under pressure, or then the employee will feel that this is going way too far and I will not be able to reach, and they will step back, and there is this dissatisfaction that would come, and there's a whole loop and circle that will go round and round. So therefore we need, if we want to bring this change, if we want to bring this influx, we need uh, this participation of private, government and industrial section to be provided hand in hand with the education firms to perform various projects, to perform various entries and parties, right? That where students will get and gain actual training, and they will get actual knowledge of how to implement certain things in practical life, and make this educational more profitable. Just on the piece of paper it is not required, right? We need to implement the knowledge that is taken into a certain section, and therefore if we want to bring this change, we need to have this rise, the epoch time of technical and vocational education. Ma'am, can you please change the next slide? Yes. So the next slide states that there is the need of this technical and skill-based development plans, right? As we stated, there is a part that will be played in crucial and important pivotal roles to be played by certain governments, certain private institutions, and there needs to be a set well-developed plan for wherein education will go in hand with the private sectors, and will give an opportunity, will give a training sections into different fields, right? Make polytechnics people in multiple people expertise into multiple technical skills, right? And for that we need to have this disruptive change that is required in the static plane of education. We need to bring this turbulence in the education. Yes, please, can you please change the next slide? For this, we need to utilize the technology for our advancement, right? We need to understand, if we analyze the current pandemic situation, we will understand that how suddenly the fields that were working with paper and pen and everything on paper with stamps and this and that now had transformed. Many fields have transformed. Many companies, private sectors have understood that certain work can be done through technology more efficiently, more easily, and it can be handled with our daily personal life as well. So therefore use of technology for our advancement is necessary. To bring this TVET, right, this technical knowledge needs to be more highlighted, the advancement of technology with the advancement of our cells, right? Ma'am, can you please turn on the next slide? And for that we need to understand, right, for making use of technology for our advancement, we need to understand this, keep this as a logo: go technical and be vocational, right? We need to be that trained person, we need to be that skilled person, where we have different opportunities of our employment, and we have to be technologically also form. So there is this table, the funnel that you see in front of you is a whole chain that is required, right? Starting from awareness to the discovery to the evolution, right? Learning, training, and implementation. There has to be, the first step has to be of awareness. Awareness that this training and vocational education is rather more important than the piece of paper of the degree that we receive, though, be it the undergraduate degree or the postgraduate degree, right? Be it from the degree of IIMs, IITs, wherever, right? As I stated, there are tons of people who are graduating right now. But the point is, are we vocational? Are we skilled for the opportunities that we seek, right? Are we skilled? Are we technical? Are we vocational enough to have that? No, right? So there has to be this awareness, the need, awareness for the need of technical and vocational education. Then there has to be this discovery of our own interest in this, right? even in IIMs, or if we are talking about management degree, right, business administrations degree, MBA degrees, there are MBAs in various fields. So which, particularly which, the discovery of your core interest. Then after that discovery, there has to be evolution, right? Evolution. We are not going to simply learn this. If you are interested in certain things, right, education has to go in this funnel shape, right? It has to go through this funnel, and then the actual output will come out, which is actually based on what it is required, right? So this discovery of inner interest, then there needs to be an evolution of what? Evolution of this interest into a different level. You need to put your ideas, inputs into that field and bring various discoveries that are new. You need to evolve. You need not to just take the actual degree that is there on piece of paper, but you need to evolve with the theoretical knowledge, with the implementational knowledge, with the trainings, right? So there has to happen a learning comes, and after learning comes there the training. Whatever you have learned, you need to uh, go through that particular training. You need to learn different things. You need to implement those things in the actual job place position, right? You go through the training, you implement, you do practice. Training is the practice period, right? So whatever that you have learned, you will have to put that into practice. So there is this implementation of the practice that we are going to do, right? So this is the actual discovery of and need that we need to, pay more emphasis on. What are the benefits of this? If we go through this funnel, what are we going to gain from this, right? That is the important aspect. If we go through this, there is the piece of degree and usse bhi naukri mil rahi hai, right? There is going to be this whole procedure that we have seen, right? Passing through this funnel, we are also going to get a job. So what is the huge difference? Why needs to learn this, right? Why needs to go technical and be vocational? So there are various advantages of this. Ma'am, can we please see the next slide? Concluding that the various benefits that we are talking about is this, right? Firstly, there is high earning. Agar, if you know that you are working somewhere, right, it's easy nowadays. Actually, it is easy to get a job, right? But it's going to be very difficult to secure that own position for yourself. Either there will be a lot of people who are having the same actual degree as you are. If you are not skilled, you will not be able to secure that position for yourself, right? So therefore, if you need to ask for appraisal, if you need to ask for promotion, if you need to secure that position of the employment for yourself, you need to be more skilled, you need to be more vocational, right? And therefore, yes, the advantage is you will be able to ask with full confidence that I required this appraisal, I required this promotion, or rather my skill will be rather paid much more in another institute or a corporate sector than what you are providing me right now. But if you are not skilled, if you are not vocational, if you are not that technical, what will happen? You will leave your whole employment journey under this pressure that if I'll not do this, I will be removed from this section. If I'll not do that, I will be thrown out of this corporate section, right? So the point is, instead of living under pressure, you will have more. The second point says that there will be more improved, increased job satisfaction, right? You will be doing things with rather more confidence. You will be growing your personality into a different level, and everything that you do, you will be able to ask equivalent economy, and your growth is eventually the growth of our country, right? So that is the advantage of it. Again, there is more flexibility in working, right? Instead of simply learning everything throughout your education system, right, and then going and implementing everything on a go and suddenly learning something new, you will be terrified. And humans, it is a basic tendency of human nature, right? We are terrified of change. This change, if it comes sudden, it is going to be rather more repercussive in a negative pattern rather than being it a positive pattern. So therefore this training is required so that there is more flexible way of moving from one system into another, right? From going investing your funds into education, then gaining the funds return, right? The return that I was talking about, becoming an asset. You will be a better asset when you actually go through this training and vocational education form of this funnel. And finally, yes, that is how the whole technical and vocational educational epoch stands right now, right? This is the current time. Pandemic has shown us all a very important area where we need to understand that degrees, yes, those matters, but what rather matters more is the skills, right? How do we grow the skills? There are no jobs simply for engineers or doctors or the management BBAs and MBAs. There are jobs for each and every individual, but we need to analyze that, right? If the rate of dropouts have increased tremendously, if there are dropouts because they are not catching up with the system, there is a flaw in the system. We need to change that, right? We need to change that system. And yes, we are in the procedure of changing, but the pace is very slow. We need to change that pace. And that is why we require to implement this training, technical, vocational, educational training that is done. Right. So, yes, ma'am, the next slide. I think this is the end. So, this is how we understand that we need to give more input, and then we can ask for the output rather than just simply thinking of where do I get the opportunity of employment and how much will I ask. Let's pay more attention towards the system through which we are passing and how are we getting ourselves more trained for that particular opportunity, and then eventually the success or the income or the growth or the advancement that you want economically will be an automatic byproduct of what we have done so far, right? So yes, technical and vocational education training is required, and this is the high time to learn. As I stated, that this is the most youthful country, so this is what we are going to pay attention to, not just on the degrees that is provided, but rather on the trainings that is required. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pranjal ma'am. It was a superb session, mind opener for all our audiences. Like we, as you said, that vocational training or diplomas or this IT diplomas are considered like secondary in the field of education, and doctors and engineers are the like the
Only
highlighted thing.
highlighted
Uh,
fields, yes.
yeah, every
So
parent want
true.
their child to do this, either go for engineering or go for and now this emerging brand has this MBA. Everybody wants to do MBA, either they are doing it in HR or any other field. So my question for you is like, how can we incorporate this vocational training into our system? Like, you are in the system of teaching, you are teaching undergraduates and postgraduate students, so how will you recommend this?
I would suggest students to think out of the box. We are trained to think of the theories that are there, right inside. How, what are you going to do of this particular theory over here, and how uske answers we already know and we have, and students are also nowadays that pro enough to be giving answers into those forms. But the point is, this is a time where we ask private industries, this is a time where we ask certain government sectors to give different kinds of projects to students, right? Make them practice. So if you are training them during their educational course, this will make them rather more trained and professional going into the field, they make certain projects, right? Over here also, the motto of Indus University is implementing practical knowledge into the theories. But the point is, they are very small projects and they do at their own level, right? Whatever they know of their own field, whatever that they have learned in the theories, they are going to implement it into a small projects. Rather than that, if we have industries who are giving them actual training, and these trainings are being given, if we see Infosys is one of the big institution and big company, and it's the name itself speaks, right? But the point is, they also, if they employ the freshers, they will give them 6 months of corporate training, which is given, right? There is a whole different sector that is there in Mysore for such 6 months of training programs. So why not give them this training in the education system itself? Why not collaborate this education and the different training that they give over there? Instead, give them during their course of education, and that is how we can bring change, right? So hand needs to be bridged between the private sector and the institute, and not just the private, also the government units, right?
Yeah, like HCL,
That
it's
can
a
bring change.
semi-government institute, like TCS and other many more are there
Yes,
to talk about.
yes,
And like
yes.
nowadays, children are getting all these professional kind of education, and there are subject introduced. Like recently, we got this humanity. In humanities, we got introduced of journalism. So this is
Yeah,
another thing. So they'll be trained by the they are in class
mass
12.
media and
Yeah,
communication.
yeah,
Yes.
they can have all these things introduced. So lovely to hear from you, ma'am. And I would like to
Thank you
thank you
so
on
much.
behalf of Global Education and Training Institute, and hope to
Thank you
have
so
you
much
see
for
you
giving me
again,
this
ma'am.
chance. Sure, sure.
Okay,
Why not? Thank you.
okay, ma'am. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
So now I would like to thank all my audiences, and I would like to tell you about our forthcoming Getty course, Getty training. And one of the trainings, pre-service training, we are going to launch in April. So do visit our website and see what are the other trainings that we are offering. Thank you, all the audience and the viewers.